From the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, this is Nebraska Farmcast. I'm Ryan Evans, and today I'm speaking with Glennis McClure, a farm and ranch management analyst with Nebraska Extension, about her new article on figuring field operation costs using the Agricultural Budget Calculator program. In the article, Glennis explores the use of UNL's Agricultural Budget Calculator program, or as we refer to it, ABC. It's a tool designed to assist producers and custom operators in calculating machinery field operation and ownership costs. By comparing newer and older equipment, the article provides valuable insights into how these calculations can influence decisions regarding machinery upgrades and their impact on production costs. Hi, Glennis. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Ryan, and thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Can you just start off by explaining why understanding machinery field operation costs is so crucial for producers and custom operators?
Yes, overall, understanding our field operation costs it is part of our cost of production calculations and figures. So for producers, I think it's important to understand that information and plug that into our budgeting and planning for the year. For custom operators, I get the question quite often, what should I charge? If my neighbor asked me to help plant or to help harvest or whatever part of their fields, that kind of thing. And so obviously we want to make sure that when we're charging, we cover the cost of our machinery, ownership, and the operation costs. Operation costs being like your fuel, repairs, your time and labor. Ownership costs being your depreciation and opportunity cost on those investments. Okay, so it's important in so many ways as we're doing planning and budgeting for our overall operations.
And in your article, you compare the costs of using newer and older models of tractors and planters. So what are some of the key financial implications of using newer equipment versus slightly older models in terms of operation and ownership costs?
I ran a couple different examples. I was kind of looking at well, we know that used equipment has been higher priced here lately, we've seen costs on power units and equipment implements going up, and we really haven't seen any corrections in those costs coming down. So they are pretty significant these days, and I think we see a larger percentage of our overall cost as part of our machinery costs and our operation cost. So I ran a couple scenarios kind of using similar equipment. In the article, I talk about a little bit older, several-year-old power unit tractor, and also in this case a planter, and different ages. And I looked up what perhaps folks would have estimated a cost of what they'd purchase those for. And then we always have to figure, like, when we buy something, how long are we anticipating using it for depreciation purposes and so on. So I ran those numbers and kind of used the same fuel efficiency, making the assumption that both of the power units in this case used let's say 10 gallons of diesel per hour, and we just kind of kept that figure for both. But so it makes sense that when you have a higher purchase value or purchase cost on something, you're going to have overall your depreciation costs are going to be higher. So if the newer equipment is higher priced, you're going to have higher depreciation, and then repairs are lower. We're lower in the newer models versus the older. So we have higher repairs on the older, less depreciation, higher depreciation on the newer, and less repairs overall. So those are the comparisons of really what I did in these examples in this particular article. I guess more importantly, I really wanted to sort of emphasize what kinds of information needs to go into making these calculations.
That's great. And if you could elaborate on that, going further into the types of information that should be inputted into the ABC program for cost calculations, Can you talk about that and then how the program ensures the reliability of those estimates?
Right. So again, the Ag Budget Calculator program is an online program accessible to anyone. You just need to create an account, and you can go in and put some of your information in and and have it figure some costs for you. And field operations, as I mentioned, is a big cost factor. And so information that needs to be input, it doesn't matter whether you're using the Ag Budget Calculator or you're figuring it by hand, but you're going to want to, of course, as I mentioned, the purchase price of the machinery or equipment or power unit. We do factor in some other things like a current list price, so a comparable power unit or implement, what the list price is. And the reason we do that is we use ASABE formulas are in the background, are part of the Ag Budget Calculator program. And those are from the American Society of Agriculture and Biological Engineers. And they have these standard formulas. And so one of the calculations that's used in their formulas is what would be a comparable list price. So also with that, always we want to know like how old it was when it was purchased, when the item was purchased, what that purchase price was, as I mentioned. How long are you going to figure on owning it and using it? In the case of power units, you're going to plug in what the TAC hours are on the machine and what you estimate using that machine for over a year's time. We also want to look at the size of the power unit. Also, of course, the size of the implement. What's its coverage rate? Like how many acres can you cover with that particular piece of machinery? Of course, the price of diesel, the price of gas, whatever it runs on, of course, that has to be factored in under our fuel costs, and so on. So that's the kind of information that goes into the Ag Budget Calculator program. And in the article, I also provide for you some examples using like Excel spreadsheets. And so, I like to look at, as we've developed the program in ABC, how is that doing? How are those calculations in comparison to if I sort of ran those by hand or ran those by another method? So I included those in there. But I would say, yes, from what I have studied, what I have researched using the program and then using other methods is that the Ag Budget Calculator does a great job. It's pretty simple to go ahead and put our machinery and equipment information in and generate those costs as a part of our overall cost estimates. But again, these are estimates. I mean, they're not, I mean, you have to keep that in mind. Again, as we're using the ag engineering formulas, those were done over, I guess they were now several years old. And we're always kind of waiting to see if there's some updates on that. But I would say overall, as I look at different ways of calculating that, it comes out to be about the same. And so, and I guess I should say too, they're only as accurate as the information you put in too. So, good information in, good information out, or, garbage in, garbage out, that kind of thing. So we want to make sure that we're doing a good job with the figures that we do put in so we can see what those calculations are.
And then how can producers use the information then to make good decisions about equipment upgrades or changes?
Well, I guess sort of what's that bottom line? If I've got a used piece of equipment, that I've had for a number of years and those repair costs are getting pretty high, let's say the efficiency on fuel just isn't what it should be, that's when we're making some decisions on trading and upgrading different types of equipment. So you could look at and say, well, I'm paying this much in repair costs. And if I bought this new piece of equipment, yes, my depreciation is going to be higher, but my repairs may be lower. So again, we kind of make those decisions, I guess when we drive our pickups or our cars and we have, we know there's a time when it's probably best to go ahead and make that investment and upgrade. But in the scenario that I ran, again, we did see quite a bit of a higher cost on the newer side of things, the newer equipment versus the older. But we also have to keep in mind what's that, again, what's the trade-in value? What we've had pretty good I guess, used equipment has gone for a pretty good price here lately. So maybe if you traded it in and upgraded, overall costs aren't going to be what you really think they might be. We just have to kind of pencil it out and see, as we do when we make all kinds of decisions, right?
And all good decisions start with knowing your numbers, right? No matter what. So,
Exactly.
you also mentioned the use of an Excel worksheet for calculations like these. So can you talk a little bit about the pros and the cons of using ABC, the Ag Budget Calculator program, compared to other methods like Excel, especially when we're looking at factors like accessibility and cost inclusion?
Well, yeah, I really like what we've done with the Ag Budget Calculator, because you can kind of work step by step and put the information in, so that, again, we've created that program to work on enterprise budgeting, but we've got a lot of good analysis that come from it. And one of the analysis features really is looking at machinery costs and field operation costs. And it is accessible by everyone. It's a cloud-based online program. And so, again, you just need to have an account, and you can go in and put your numbers and work with it, and make it useful for you. We've run into Excel. I show you some examples of putting similar kinds of information into an Excel spreadsheet, but we're running into issues where not everyone has Excel. Some people have gone to using like Google Sheets or some other programming, and so they're not always compatible. So that's why, again, I think it's great that we've been able to move in the direction of using the Ag Budget Calculator, which is an online program. And at this point, it's free of cost, free of charge for folks to use. We've been very fortunate to have some sponsors, like the Nebraska Soybean Board, the Nebraska Corn Board. We've had USDA NIFA funding through our North Central Extension Center to help create that program. So again, we've been able to keep it sort of out there for folks to use, just free of charge.
Great. And just to wrap up in that vein, are there any upcoming features or add-ons or new things going on with the Ag Budget Calculator program that might stand to help further aid producers in their financial planning?
Yes. To this point, we've had the program working really well with analysis features in for folks that are working on crop budgets. We're really looking forward to, in just I'd say the coming weeks, or month or two here at least, where we've got the livestock portion of the program ready to go to be able to work on enterprise budgeting with that. So that's really exciting that's coming up. We're considering or sort of planning. We've written some grants to continue development and working on a marketing plan feature into the Ag Budget Calculator program, with additional analysis features added in as we go. And also, we're talking with folks that work with specialty crop farmers, those that grow fruits and vegetables, and so they can take a look and they can use the Ag Budget Calculator and figuring their costs. And when we know our costs, that helps us determine what we need for a price. What do we need to hopefully be profitable and be able to sustain our operations beyond that. So again, Ag Budget Calculator has really been exciting, and we're here to teach it and help people learn to use it. And so stay in touch and utilize our resources on that, if you would.
That's Glennis McClure, a farm and ranch management analyst with Nebraska Extension and the Center for Ag Profitability. You can find out more about what we've been speaking about here on this episode in a new article that is linked in the description of this podcast, if you're listening on a podcast app out there, and on our Center for Ag Profitability's website at cap.unl.edu/ABC. Glennis, thanks for your time.
Yes, Ryan. Yeah.
Nebraska Farmcast is a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. For the latest research-based information and education resources to manage your farm or ranch operation, visit our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu.